Today I'm going to talk about Hellraiser, which I've got in this box set. This Hellraiser box set, you get the 3 films. Hellraiser 1, 2 and 3. Or is it the way around there? Yep. I'm only really going to talk about the first one, because it's the only one worth talking about in this series. I mean, Hellbound has some moments. Hellraiser 3 is kind of garbage, it's fun. And the rest of the film is way downhill. It's one of those series that so didn't deliver on its promise that it's quite embarrassing. But the Arrow box set is worth seeing because they've got a documentary called Leviathan that covers the first 2 movies that is really in depth, and you get a lot of commentary and stuff in these as well. You even get a little bit of a documentary with the third one as well, but it's much shorter because there's not much to see in that third film. Hellraiser was a late 80s film, which I saw on video when it came out. Like, obviously, I was too young to see it in the cinema, but I saw it on video and it was like, oh wow, this is really something. This is very different from what you expect from a horror film. This is get lots of elements that when you're a teenager, quite young, you're like, I kind of get it, but I'm not quite sure if I get it fully. That you get much more as you get older. And it's wonderful. I mean, it's still Clive Barker's best film. I mean, I liked all 3 films he made as a director. I mean, I really like Nightbreed, especially once it's now got a proper release and has got the stuff put back into it that should have always been in there. Like some scenes in that film that were the most important scenes in the film weren't in the original cut because of the studio. Then Lord of Illusions, which is a underrated film. It's not amazing, but it is wonderful anyway. But Hellraiser's kind of the where it's at, and I actually managed to rewatch it this Halloween, which I haven't watched for a long time because one of those films I saw so often as a teenager that I knew it too well. It was like, I've seen this film so many times that there's nothing new there. There's nothing there that I have not seen. It's like, I know every line, I know every moment. So I can't stop watching it for a while. And then I rewatched it and I was like, I've forgotten some of this. I cannot remember how. I know roughly what happens, but I can't remember how it happens. So that was quite nice to see that again, where you don't know all the lines anymore because you've forgotten some of them. And it was really refreshing to watch again because it was so well made. And it is, one of the interesting things is it's similar to Ginger Snaps in the idea that it's about something using a monster. In this one, it's really about like middle age. So a middle-aged disappointment and the need to try and move on with your life and find some excitement that you can't naturally get. You don't have the energy of youth to give you delusions of certain things that would make you think the world's a great place and things. Now it's like the world's compromised, you're compromised, you're having these dinner parties with these people that you barely know, or you're telling each other jokes, you're trying to make yourself feel youthful. I mean, there's a big joke from this one that how Andy Robinson's character is always trying to keep everyone upbeat and things, even though he kind of knows that he's getting old and he's not that much of a rebel. He's a businessman, you know. And it's like there's this kind of middle-aged depression going on that he's not admitting to. There's that feeling throughout the film of people who are getting towards middle age or are middle age and they can't quite accept it, which is a very interesting idea for a horror movie, like middle-aged disappointment, but it does work, and it really delivers so that the horror comes out of it, because the horror is based in character, and that's what you lost with the series after this film is a horror based on characterization. It introduces you to the Cenobites, who are not that big of a deal in the film. They're part of the film, but they're the monsters in the background for much of the film. They're not really the thing that drives it. The thing that drives it is a sense of murder and sense of lust. So basically it starts off with Frank, who's a younger brother, who's a layabout, criminal, who's into basically S&M and finding new ways to feel. Basically he seems to say that this is never enough, what is around him is never enough. So he finds his box, or the box finds him, because the sense of the box is always waiting for the next person who needs that thrill. It's always waiting for them. So you find the box, you open the box, and you releases the Cenobites, which are these demons who take apart you limb from limb, flesh to flesh, and it's like an S&M thing. It's really dark and disturbing, very different from a horror movie, normal thing. And they come from hell, and there's like a sense of they're giving you what you want, but you find out as soon as you get there that maybe it wasn't what you exactly wanted. Maybe it's a bit further than you expected, but it's too late. And they destroy him in this house, which later his brother and his brother's wife appear at the house, and they're going to move in because they've moved back to this area. Now the big thing with this film is it's meant to be set in America, but it's shot in England, and it's obviously shot in England, and it's a bit weird. There's a lot of weird dubbing going on, and it's strange. It's a strange, weird mix that doesn't quite work, but the rest of the film's so strong it doesn't matter. So the film continues to go on, and is this relationship between Andy Robson's character and his wife Julia, who are basically in a marriage that's not working. It's very polite, but she's very repressed. He doesn't do anything for her, really. And he's too much of a clown for her. And she had an affair with his brother Frank before he disappeared. And she was much further into him than she ever was into the brother she married. And basically, at one point, his hand gets cut and blood drops on the floor on the attic where Frank had been killed by the Cenobites. The blood brings Frank back in the skinned body, and he needs more blood to actually come back to life. And he convinces Julia to actually do it. I mean, basically, Claire Higgins plays Julia. It's basically her film. Really, she's the one who drives much of it, because even though she's disgusted with certain things, she's a lust for Frank. She needs this life back in her, even if it means killing people. So she starts bringing these men home and smacking over the head with a hammer, and then Frank appears and sucks the blood, and he starts to come more to life. And this kind of three-way relationship is evolving, where she's in love with Frank, but she's having to hide all the stuff from her husband, who's getting suspicious of something going on, something weird. He doesn't know what it is, but he knows there's something weird. So it becomes this relationship of the three in a relationship, and there's only two of the people, and one person is not aware of it, and he knows there's something up. He's got a daughter, Kirsty, who also has moved into the area, but she will not come live in the house because she doesn't like the mother-in-law, because her mother died, and she didn't like who her dad remarried, and it's like this complicated relationship. She discovers about the affairs, but then she also discovers Frank in the house, like within 2 minutes of each other. She gets the box, she opens the box, and it becomes the Cenobites are released, and she tells them that Frank's still alive. Now, this is where the film switches, basically, because the first hour is basically there's three characters in this relationship, with Kirsty in the background. Then it becomes Kirsty's film in the last third, as she discovers what's going on. Some people criticise the film for this. I think it works really well, because it becomes this thing about, it's a film about aging and depression emerging, and the lust for something new. And suddenly you go into this person who is young and who has all these emotions that are out of control, and who has this nature of chaos that suddenly hits the film. Like, all this thing's been setting up for, it's like it was a film noir. We're going to kill these people, then we're going to take over this person, and everything's going to be fine. Then this age of chaos suddenly emerges and screws it all up for the conspirators. And she brings the Cenobites back to Frank, basically. And basically they have to become this primal situation where it's everyone for themselves. And where basically Kirsty has to try and figure out what's going on and try and defeat the Cenobites and Frank, while Frank and Julia are trying to defeat her and escape the Cenobites. And all hell breaks loose and everybody dies, apart from Kirsty. And it really works. It adds this kind of weird insanity to it. It's basically a film noir with S&M monsters. That's what Hellraiser really is. It's really a weird movie about these relationships with this flesh and monsters in it. And it really works in that way. But I also like the chaos that the Kirsty character brings into everything, because everyone would find apart if it wasn't for that damn kid, basically. Who just destroys it all. And it just adds this chaos that she's just this agent of someone who can't be stopped. Just the same way the Cinemates can't be stopped. So all these plans that are, all this seedy like middle-aged affair thing suddenly becomes this mess of flesh and blood and murder and desperation where the lovers are killing each other, and you know, and people are really into the darker elements more than they'd ever really admit to. I mean, even Andy Robson's character has a darker side he won't ever admit to because he's too repressed. But it does come out when he's watching boxing and things. And the Julia character, she's like so repressed because she doesn't want to be with his man. It causes like physical illness really with her, and this depression until Frank shows up again. And it just becomes this sense of this disappointment in life and anything you would do to try and defeat it. And then when you release the chaos, more and more chaos comes. And in the case of the Cenobites and relatives who get in the way. So it's a wonderful film. Hellraiser's wonderful. I adore it. It just never went anywhere. I mean, the second one tried to go in a different direction before it became a slasher series, with Pinhead being a slasher, basically. The second one tried to expand the mythos a little bit, but it wasn't a very good script, and the direction wasn't really good. And you could sense the actors were left alone in that second film, and those characters were abandoned. Like, the Julia character in the second one is basically not the same character because the character's abandoned, basically. There's all this setup of this mad doctor in this insane asylum, which is very promising, that kind of gets thrown away. Everything gets thrown away in the second one. And there's some nice effects, but nothing really adds up to anything. But it's still enjoyable, but it's, compared to the first one, it's very minor, and then the series just kind of goes off into this mess after that. But the first one is still really strong. It actually feels stronger now when you've seen the disappointment of the sequels. You realise how good a foundation it had. But it also showed you it was a one-off film. It didn't need a sequel. It never needed a series. This would have been fine as a one-off film. But because the industry needs to make money, it became a series. I mean, it didn't need to be a series. It was fine on its own. But I know when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, I wanted to see a sequel. Like, everyone wanted to see a sequel because they thought it was going to be amazing, and it never was. But there you go. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll be back soon with some more.